What is a food system, or what is the food system? And it's all of the components, all the key drivers that go into everything from the inputs into production, agriculture, to the production itself, to the distribution of the outcomes of production, all the way through to consumption and waste disposal. And that system is fundamentally broken. All of our critical infrastructure, Port of Honolulu, the airport, energy production, the mooring points for offloading fossil energy, all that infrastructure is on the south side of this island. So if there's a major hurricane event, all that stuff is down, and we don't have a lot of food stored, right? We're in deep trouble, and we don't really have much of a plan.
So we're very much susceptible to weather elements. Hurricanes and tsunamis are not our friend at all. Food storage in general, like between distributors and other warehousing facilities, on Oahu we have storage for about 2 weeks. On the neighbor islands, it's about a week.
Until fairly recently, the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, the City County of Honolulu, had never even had a conversation with the people who import food into our state. The Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, guess what? They don't store food. FEMA, they store about 1.5 days of food for the island of Oahu. You and your family are on your own. So it's up to you to have a 14-day supply of food, water, and essential medicine.
We're just in a very unique situation that's so different from everywhere else in the world. So it's very important that we're prepared when natural disasters come, that we can provide for our people and take care of them.
So after the fires happened, it was about 2 weeks before we really received a lot of support from outside, and the community came together. It was your fishermen, your butchers, your farmers, your chefs.
1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions comes from the food and agricultural sector. There is no way we will be able to realize the Paris Climate Agreement or realize the UN Sustainable Development Goals without a fundamental transformation of how we produce, distribute, and consume food.
We definitely do need to find more support, more resources, like especially in the financial resources, to help our homesteaders to build capacity. They may have the time and skills and knowledge to do it, but oftentimes not the financial means to really get it going, getting the equipment they need to get started, getting the infrastructure they need so that they can actually build an economic engine through their homesteads.
There's a ton of idle land that's just growing weeds at this point. Haole koa is popping up all over, and it's not an absence of land. It's really has to do with the economic realities of farming in Hawaii.
There's probably a dozen or just a little less than a dozen farmers on Lanai. The whole island is pretty much zoned. It was called the Pineapple Island, and that's all they farmed. It's all ag land, but it's not being used as ag.
Agricultural census data that just recently came out from 2022 demonstrated that we had a decrease in small farms and an increase in the profits held by large farm operations here.
As an island chain trying to ship food across communities, we haven't solved for this collectively. We haven't solved for this from the standpoint of public infrastructure, relying on individual businesses to come up with these sort of solutions for ourselves.
And this is my 8th year as the chair of the Agriculture Environment Committee. And we've been repeating the same thing, how we import 85 to 90% of our food. We pay $3 billion every year to do that, and we've got hundreds of thousands of acres of ag lands.
But having the amount of imports we get that's shocking. For me, it's shocking. We can grow all year round. We have the climate to do that, but we're not. Even our stuff that we grow here is being exported out.
In some parts of the agricultural system, we're investing, we're just not making the connection that we need to procure here.
If you can't add value to something here, the land and labor costs are exceedingly high compared to any other country that grows things.
A lot of farmers either don't know what to do with their B-grade produce or produce that they can't sell, or they just plow it under because it's not economical for them to harvest it and transport it.
It's very difficult for farmers in Hawaii to compete with growers elsewhere.
And so when we go to the store, we want to have the lowest price possible. So distributor A needs to buy product at the lowest price possible. Well, if today my lettuce is a little more expensive than something in California, the distributor will buy from California. They don't necessarily have an incentive to buy local. They're going to go for the cheapest product because they're trying to meet our needs.
It drives me nuts when I go into Costco and you'll see bananas there from Ecuador. On the drive there, I'll see rotting bananas on the side of Hana Highway. Okay, we're importing thousands of miles, labor that was probably underappreciated when we could be investing here on the island.
You know, where is food on legislative priorities? Because, you know, homelessness gets funded, but food security is really a preventer of homelessness. It's a prevention technique in that if families are food secure, they can then divert those funds to things like childcare, rent, utilities.
We can grow more of our own food, and of course at one time Hawaii was 100% self-sufficient in the food that was grown for the people of Hawaii.
And so many of our stores carry things that come from outside, and so we rely on that barge to come in that then provides the food into the stores, and then we're just so accustomed in today's world, you know, sometimes it's convenience. At the same time, we have all the means necessary and the resources necessary to actually just grow our own.
Our direction has been for a long time moving towards convenience, you know, and convenient foods, which we're finding is definitely not the best thing for our health and bodies, but it's also not the best for our local communities. And the culture inside of their family is based around convenient foods, right? Like fast food and pre-prepared meals, things that are fast and easy.
Some of the foods that may be understood as like cultural foods. However, there are benchmarks of sound nutrition, and that doesn't include lots of spam.
So we want to grow our own foods, not eat processed foods because they cause sicknesses and diseases, so we don't want that in our system. A lot of our families suffer from those processed foods, so that's why we want to grow our own foods and eat healthier.
Hawaii has a relatively high rate of poverty. Then you often see those communities that exist in a state of poverty being food insecure and often malnourished, and somewhat ironically tend to be overweight or obese because of the quality of food that are available in low-income and particularly low-income communities of color. As the U.S. society has moved toward increased amounts of consumption of highly processed foods, high fat, high salt, high sugar content, that's posing a certain burden on our bodies, and that's resulting in significant hidden costs in terms of our labor productivity and medical costs. So these things actually have economic burdens on U.S. society. The brighter side of all this is there's all kinds of ecological and social challenges that we face in the modern food system, but there's also solutions. There's also an entire growing scientific community, myself included, who are environmental scientists, who are ecologists, who are sociologists, who are thinking about the food and agricultural system in new ways, saying we can modify these conditions. We can change the way that we're provisioning nutrients.
This is Ka'ehu, short for Kai'ehu. It is 64 acres of coastal wetland. As we have multiple punawae on property, freshwater springs, we believe that one of them was specifically reserved for mo'i or higher up officials. It was, as I know it, called Kawaiola, meaning the healing water or the water of health. For our programs, we work with the central Maui, so our neighbors, basically the haumana that are in Paukukalo, in Hawaiian Homes, Kahului, and then all Maui as well. But I think having an area that they can come to and work on the aina and contribute to the cultivation of the food and then be able to reap those benefits. And it's always free to community. And I think it's seeing the work that they do and getting to eat the fruits of their labor, it's very beneficial. A lot of them don't grow up where they're cultivating their own food, or they don't learn the importance of water quality or maintaining an area and how it relates to food security. And we teach them the importance of water quality so they can test the waters that's going in their food to see, is it high in certain things that are not good for you? Is it low in certain things that we might need? And how that relates to, maybe if it has low oxygen water, we can put different plants in there that will photosynthesize and create higher oxygenated water that would create better water conditions for the things that are living inside and better water to feed our food. So it's kind of seeing the interconnectedness of community, people, even of different areas of culture.
So to frame a couple of other pieces of detail that speak to our vulnerability, we have high rates of household food insecurity, and in some communities it's quite high. A recent report from the Hawaii Food Bank just came out estimating that the actual rate of household food insecurity in Hawaii is actually 30%.
You know, and a gallon of milk can cost about close to $10. You know, so that's the kind we deal with that cost, and sometimes the things that come from outside are cheaper, and so our people will go with what's cheaper because they need to stretch their dollar farther.
About 50% of what we distribute is fresh produce, dairy, milk, etc. So what that means is our clients can go online and shop for what they want every week. Obviously all at no cost. We try to think about food groups and make sure that we have balanced food groups. So we try to have a carb, we try to have protein, we try to have like a prepared meal, vegetables, fruits, and then we try to stock like family staples like peanut butter. So we purchase a lot of our food, but we also get food, receive food from different organizations, distributors, grocers. So the way that the food ecosystem works in Hawaii and nationwide is that it's a triangle. So at the top of the triangle, you have the Hawaii Food Bank. They then distribute that food to organizations like us. And it's the responsibility of partner agencies like us to actually distribute food into the hands of the families and individuals in need. When we're purchase from local farms, purchase local food. So that way we're reinvesting into our local farms, making sure that they stay afloat, and also able to buy this like beautiful produce that our clients love. 90% of our clients make less than $40,000 a year. So it's impossible for them to buy eggs without us. We don't turn anyone away. We have not yet ever turned anyone away. We aspire to never have to turn anyone away.
So there are programs that take state dollars, understanding the negative impact on the state economy and state budget from public health problems, and allocating some of our state tax dollars to supporting limited income families to gain access to higher quality foods. And guess what? Spend that money on farmers' products that are being grown here.
There are developing organizations like FarmLink that are connecting all the pieces that are so important. And they will buy from, let's say, banana farmers and then deliver to the end consumer. And that's really difficult to build in the state because things are so much more expensive to do here and it's not going through the normal channels. So that's a really neat business that has come around in the last maybe 5 or 10 years. We do sell to FarmLink as well because they do support a lot of locally grown and locally made products.
FarmLink Hawaii was established in 2015, but went through a rebirth, as many things did in 2020 with the pandemic. We are a 100% local online grocery store. If you are a household using Snappy BT, you can order through FarmLink and you get free home delivery. And we also honor debucks, which is a really important program. 50% off of local produce and poi for those using SNAP. So you could be living in a community that the grocery stores don't have a good local produce selection, which means you would forego that entire 50% off, right? Because it's not available to you. But because the marketplace is available, you can have that wide selection and then that free home delivery. Most retailers don't have the resources or the desire to do the extra work that it requires to work with small and medium scale producers. The way that I see it right now is we're serving both ends of the socioeconomic spectrum really well. The middle, we're not. And it's not just FarmLink, this is, I think, universal. Because if you've got plenty of disposable income, you can lean into your values and your aspiration for high quality, right? You've got the resources to do that. If you're using SNAP, you have debucks, which really facilitates your buying power. But for that vast middle, so we often use the term ALICE, the asset limited income constrained but employed. I think a lot of teachers end up in ALICE, right? So there's not a set of resources that are dedicated to enabling purchasing power, nor is there the individual income. So that to me feels like the unserved middle. Again, it's more than 50% of our community not getting the support that's needed to flourish. So I see us doing really well at the ends. And then there's this big question mark for all of us, like how do we fill in from there? So I think that's still an open question for all of us, like how do we better serve our whole community?
We have a legacy of agricultural productivity, but not necessarily legacies that are passed down intergenerationally, where you might be able to inherit a parcel and a tractor and a market and a knowledge set that's going to enable you to really be successful right off the bat in the agricultural industry. And so part of what we are trying to do is build communities of producers that can ideally find ways to cooperate with one another, to share education with one another, and to collaboratively push for education.
That's the research that we're doing now, is looking at institutional purchasing of local, organic, fair trade, and other commodities to build a market for our local farmers. And so that way the farmers will be compensated for selling into a local market and selling into that market commodities that are produced in accordance with ecological farming system principles.
We believe that if we do what is pono, then in time, challenges will come, but overall, we'll be able to contribute to growing fresh, local, sustainable food here in Hawaii. We're in transition from development, kind of building the infrastructure, getting our water, our electricity out here, and then now into operations and farming. And so we talk about Hawaiʻi's food system. One big experiment, one big kind of focal point of this farm is to see what does that transition look like from plantation days to diversified agriculture and feeding Hawaii. Is it hydroponics? Is it aquaponics? Is it in-ground farming? Is it orchard trees? Or maybe a mix of all? And that's kind of the approach we've taken here. What are we going to grow to help offset some of what's imported? The greens are nice because they're fragile, a shorter shelf life. And so when you import your greens, your mixed greens, they're already a lot older than if you were to buy something fresh and local. So when it comes to schools and really mandating legislatively that the schools are going to buy 30% more local, now sends a signal to all the farmers that we can grow more local food because we will have a customer in the Department of Education, maybe even private schools as well. And the value in that is we're providing a lot of food to one place. I don't have to go to 100 different restaurants. I can go to one school or one preparation area for the DOE and drop off all of my produce there. At a high level, it'd be very beneficial. And really you're keeping that money that the DOE spends, public schools in particular, they spend on importing food, if you will, to going to local farmers. So if we have a known institution buying our product, then we can scale. The reason we haven't gone to the full 10 acres yet and utilized the whole 10 acres is because we don't have buyers lined up.
I think we should be thinking about what is optimization of local agriculture to play social, economic, and ecological functions, but also being dependent upon global commodity chains is an important backup system, or even primary system. Okay? So it's kind of important to temper our expectations around what we can do.
So this is the Hawaii Agrivoltaic Research and Demonstration Center. Essentially here we are exploring, experimenting, and trying to understand what kind of crops can be grown underneath and in between solar array systems. So we explore different microclimates, what crops, what varieties we can grow, so we can better understand what we can do at scale, and then later on help farmers get settled and establish farms underneath the solar panels as well. So it's all about exploring proof of concept and to see what we can do at this site, which we can then scale out and hopefully provide meaningful data and information to future farmers, and kind of see how new and exciting this is for not only food systems, but for energy systems. You'll hear these mechanical noises. So these are actually tracking the sun. So being able to work in the shade, just not only for your mentality, but for your longevity, your health. Honestly, the simple things of reverting back to growing, having the pleasure of taking care of a plant and then eating it, that's what got me. The happiness, the joy, the satisfaction, the sweat, it's great.
We're now pivoting from your being depressed, hopefully to seeing that there are some really important opportunities for young people like yourselves to get involved.
And I actually had some interns at the end of last year doing surveying from the street, you know, not to invade anybody's privacy, to see how much food was grown on the island by the people in the community. And over 50% of the homes had gardens that they could see from the road.
We like to partner up with certain organizations and even your everyday residents here on Maui to collect the excess of fruits and veggies, and then we either distribute to donatable organizations or we sell them to local companies, and really just having a nice food security for Maui.
We'll harvest oranges or ulu, and Kamehameha schools will buy that. And so that's actually, they're supporting growers on the island to purchase and feed the kids at the schools. All these people, they all got checks in the mail from Kamehameha schools supporting local people just because they had an extra orange tree on their property. Yeah. And we can provide you an avenue to distribute that to people who need it on the island. And so we're all mutually supporting each other.
Producing some amount of our own food where farmers can be competitive relative to the globalized marketplace, and but not try to grow everything ourselves is probably the balance that we want to strike. Because there are certain things that we're just not going to grow here. We just simply cannot grow here, or economically we will not grow them here, because we could grow rice, right? We all like to eat rice, but guess what? California and Arkansas produce rice at literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of acres.
We make bean-to-bar chocolate starting from cacao seeds all the way to finished chocolate bars. As somebody who went to high school here and was interested in agriculture, I liked fruit trees. Cacao ties in really nicely to that because you end up turning it into something that makes people happy, that is delicious, that people really do want and consume regularly. Predominantly, what Manoa Chocolate does is we buy cacao seeds from farmers and go through a manufacturing process to convert it into finished chocolate bars for sale, whether that's retail or wholesale. The goal, and what we're working on now and where we're standing right now, is a farm that we are very much a part of. The idea is vertical integration. We want, as Manoa Chocolate grows, to also see the amount of cacao growing within the state of Hawaii. We're the only state that can viably grow it, commercially grow it. So it has to be tropics, and Hawaii falls into the tropics. Farming is definitely not easy, and I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of work that is, and farming is just the first half. Chocolate making and manufacturing is a whole nother half. So there's plenty of jobs in it, it's just, do people really want to do it? And we'll see. We're seeing people with a lot of interest in cacao. We're on 5 acres right now. We've got almost 2,000 trees here. And the idea is to get to more like 20,000 trees. Yeah, we're just making chocolate here, growing and making chocolate.
Farm to School really has 3 core elements. One is garden and farm-based education. Having gardens and farms on school campuses that are outdoor classrooms for students. The second would be food education, so nutrition, food systems, agriculture more broadly. And the third is actually starting to transform school food, so getting more local food onto the breakfast and lunch plates of children and youth in schools. What I saw as a garden educator was just the joy and love that students have for being outside, exploring nature, getting to know different types of plants. Here in Hawaii, we have such unique native species. We also have very important plants that have sustained generations of people in these islands that are really well suited to our climate.
I found, especially as a 4th grade teacher, there's a lot of interwoven aspects. So it's not something separate, it's something that really enhances our understanding of like social studies standards, science standards, and it really builds off like authentic learning.
Recognizing that not all students thrive in an indoor classroom setting. Many people that have worked as school garden educators or classroom teachers that are using a garden as a classroom have observed that children who don't thrive in the classroom setting oftentimes are the stars of the garden. So we see that it's part of offering opportunities for every student to thrive and experience that sense of success and purpose.
Because we're trying to grow quality community members, right? Like people that want to go back out in the community and do things that are positive. And I think that like what I've seen is like a buy-in into school a little bit more.
So this local school food goal of 30% local school food by 2030 is something we're working toward within the Farm to School movement of Hawaii.
I've been informed that we are at 6.4%. That's where we are, right?
That's the latest report.
That's the latest report that I got from the Hawaii Farm Bureau. That's what they said in their testimony. So we've got a ways to go. I just think it's a great concept. It helps the farmers, it helps our kids, the families and everything. It's really a good deal.
That's what the community wants for their kids at the school. They want their food to come from the farmers on Lanai to bring that to the school. They don't want, our farmers to send it to Oahu and then get it redistributed to Lanai. They want from Lanai to Lanai. But now I need to have a conversation with the food services people at the school. Find out what is it that they're looking for, what do they need, and how much do I need to provide them. Amongst all of us farmers, we can sort of hooey up and figure out, how much each of the little farms will grow to meet the needs of the school.
I think it's really important that students from rural areas like where I'm from, they have an opportunity to eat healthy from the aina. There's a lot of cultural knowledge that we can honor and bring into our schools, so it's a better reflection of who they are and who our communities are.
The schools need to recognize that there's more to success than academics. Our kids have these innate skills and abilities to put food on the table. And most times when we define success, it's a high-paying job, but that high-paying job is for what? To pay for your rent or mortgage and food every day. You need to pay for food every day. So if a student can put food on the table at 3rd grade, then that's half of the battle to that end of that success story.
I really hope that we start getting more local foods into our school system. I feel like as educators, we can really start the path towards sustainable food systems. And I think as individuals, we can all do our part, but when we come together, we just have more power to influence decisions. And I really do think schools should have that pathway towards the future.
I really think, as a former school teacher, that our schools are basically the hearts of our community, and I want to invest more in them, not pull resources away from them. The impact of scratch cooking on student morale, it's real. When kids smell good food cooking, they feel loved.
Students who maybe experience food insecurity, and just knowing that we care for them, we care for who they are inside, we care for the food that they have, we care for their bodies, everything.
I have 3.5 acres that we maintain. We do traditional farming, organic farming, hydroponics, animal husbandry, floriculture. So everybody has a responsibility on the farm. they love it. You know, they excel and they do all kinds of things. I do teach my students how to run the machines. They will go ahead and do all the field work for me. In this class, we also do welding. You need it, you make it, you break it, you fix it. So just giving them those opportunities, I found really make it successful here. So every year we do a fall festival and we were able to grow 1,000 pumpkins. They make the line, they cut lines, they do all this. We learn irrigation, everything. I don't do sprinklers anymore. Everything is drip line irrigation. I'll usually have the cornfield right there, still going, because I usually plant watermelons during the summer, and then I start prepping the fields for the pumpkins to get in. Something is always being in the fields. I never let anything just kind of settle unless I'm doing a cover crop. So we do Japanese cucumber, cilantro, green onion, manoa lettuce. I only do manoa in here because romaine too top heavy and it will fall because the system is so small, but it's super effective. But then we literally just got this greenhouse GAP certified so that whatever comes out of here can go into our cafeteria. Every student has a project that they either sell things or they create an agri-science project out of it. So I have one student who's gonna be doing a project on seeing if music affects egg production. And we've been slowly getting stuff. So I got an ice machine coming in. They're like, what do you need an ice machine for? Value-added products. You know, when you go to markets, you need to ice your stuff, you know? Yeah. But I feel that we have the perfect climate. We have soil, I have space. I do ask the office for the shredded newspaper and we use that as weed control. When they go out to sell, I'm like, okay, do the treasurer's report, tell me how much we made that one. Where did we sell everything? Yeah, we sold, and they tell me and how much we make. And usually every Friday we make about $600 because I really want them to know that this is their farm. I just oversee it and I make sure everything's taken care of. This is your farm. You tell me what you guys want. If this is something you want and you get excited for it, let's do it.
We've had a lot of donations to our school because of the fact of community members wanting to be involved, as well as other teachers that have come in to work with me and help support the students. And so that's been the greatest part, is because when it's not just the teacher and it's actually bringing other people in that are experts in those areas, then you get some of the things where you get discussions on like careers that they might be interested in or going into kupu, which a lot of students are not aware of even what those roles are. And so without those people coming in, a lot of the things wouldn't happen.
We want to let them understand the benefits of what we call slow foods, of foods that are grown locally and picked with our own hands and then prepared from scratch. The more exposure that we can give our kids about food and preparing food, not only preparing food, but growing the food as well. It's valuable, but it's also very difficult. But it's one of those things, when we teach it, we have to very slowly integrate that. Anytime I can inspire somebody to go into this line of work, you know, it's not for everybody. It's really laborious. If you like using your hands a lot, you're more of that type of person. That's how I was, you know, then this definitely could be a viable option. All of the foods that our students prepare are sold in either a restaurant or are sold in a food court downstairs where, you know, the public can actually come in and see not only see, but taste what the students are making and doing. The skills and behaviors and everything that they're learning in school doesn't have to be for profit. It doesn't have to be for hospitality. It can be for helping others. It could be for feeding people, you know. So we like to be able to, you know, shape our community, you know, and be able to inspire.
Organic farming systems are based, rather than on synthetic chemical fertilizers, the cycling of organic matter. Think of compost or cover cropping, all animal manures. All those are forms of organic matter that, if properly managed, can improve soil quality, can allocate essential nutrients to crops, and sequester carbon into the soil. So if we stop producing foods the way that we have, using a lot of embedded fossil energy, and switch globally to a more ecologically based and organic matter-based soil fertility management regime, we can not only reduce the amount of emissions, we can start sinking carbon into the soil.
As the islands continue to grapple with climate change, where producers who have already been adopting conservation agricultural practices, otherwise maybe known as sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, that have demonstrated to be able to have yields similar to that of conventional productivity, but without some of the same detrimental environmental effects, or with a greater capacity to withstand disruptions that might happen, hazard, whether it's droughts or flooding, etc.
There's a global consensus that the way to feed the world is through localized, community-based, regenerative agriculture.
Well, we are in the back roads of Waimanalo at my farm, Yo Garden. What I love about regenerative farming is that you can set cycles in motion. So like the harvesting of weeds that are no longer serving in parts of the garden are actually food for the animals that we have on site. The animals compost the weeds and food waste to then create manure, which then I can mix with mulch to then create healthy soil. So allowing cycles to be set up within the process of farming is really a beautiful thing to witness, because all of a sudden you're seeing how one thing feeds into the next and a diverse ecosystem can start to thrive. We use permaculture principles. Really, it's about organically growing food. No usage of pesticides. You're really trying to build something better than when you were there by allowing the soil to generate with the organic matter that is on the farm. It's moving away from the industrial conventional styles of lots of pesticide uses, monocropping, and really more biodiverse situations that we can use to our benefit in building soil and encouraging optimal health in the plants. I fell in love with the concept of what it means to build soil, like have live soil. So basically, healthy soil leads to healthy plants. The Ahupua'a system was a perfect example of permaculture design, working from Mauka to Makai and everything in between, working with the environment to basically encourage the best optimal growing habitats. One of the biggest reasons I became an organic regenerative farmer was because when I first started looking at food in the markets and my options were, either conventional or organic food, which is kind of pricey, I realized, if I want to know where my food is coming from, the best way to do that is to plant it myself. And in doing so, I've definitely noticed health benefits. Just feeling better, feeling more alive within myself, feeling a connection to the earth that I had never felt before, because I was literally watching miracles happen, from a seed being planted to trees being grown, to vegetables being produced that I got to harvest on a regular basis. I realized that this is a lifestyle that I want to embody and live for the rest of my life, and I would love to pass on to my children. Watching my children enjoy food and knowing where their food comes from is so valuable in this time. They actually get to run out to the banana tree, run out to whatever fruit tree and get to see what's available to harvest, and they come back all excited,
And so I think our membership and the interests in regenerative agriculture are likely to grow. And so we hope to continue to forward good policy at the state to ensure that we are supporting those producers and other producers to adopt those good agricultural and good land management practices.
But if we start to build that small farm resource base that are connected to these so-called food hubs, where those products are aggregated, that aggregated volume of food products can be sold into larger markets.
We really want to be able to create economic equality for entrepreneurs that are stepping into the value-added space. This is going to be part of a bigger statewide hub and spoke model to create a food innovation network that serves all islands. So imagine a user receiving product through these doors. So product can roll up in a truck from a farm or a distributor, begin its journey through the center, and ultimately be processed, bottled, packaged, and come out through these doors as well. Fruits and vegetables can start being washed in these 3-compartment sinks,
loaded on these racks or carts and be taken through the center. And they may come in with like one idea, like I want to kind of focus on scaling this product, but then they see a whole different set of equipment and they're like, oh, actually, how can we scale this other product? About 12,000 square feet is spread across these production spaces. We've worked with entrepreneurs through our classes that are doing manufacturing, creating product for sale around the island in kitchens the size of like a walk-in closet. So for them to be able to scale up in a space like this is huge. I think it's really important for these users that are learning to either launch a product or start scaling, just the access to a lot of these pieces of equipment. Between these 4 kitchens all adjacent to one another, you can have 2 zones per room, so 8 simultaneously. Imagine a user would be able to come in here and plug into a bottling line and save their settings based on the user and their product here, getting companies strong and stable, getting product through our state food system. High pressure processing, on average will extend shelf life 30 times. So if you go from weeks to months, that's a game changer. So you can really explore getting your product throughout the state. And they have full AV setup here, so you see the lights, screens that will look from overhead above the stovetop, be piped here. So yeah, this is cool. This is super cool. You can see it's this big open floor co-working space, this enclosed area for smaller, imagine seminars, classes, workshops. It can happen here. But really, this is going to be a key space to be able to cultivate that community of users, individuals to come work on their business or check their email after, and then ultimately be able to connect and network and to learn from one another.
If we don't show up in the state legislative process, then our representatives, the senators, look at a bill and they're like, food waste, who cares, right? Nobody said anything.
I am going to be giving my first live testimony on an invasive species bill, and that bill, its goal is to help prevent and reduce the spread of invasive species that we currently have on island, particularly at the point of origin within our farms and nursery operations. So it's really putting a lot more responsibility on all of our agricultural producers and our communities to manage this issue. And I'm coming at it from the perspective of a teacher who talks a lot about native plants. So something like the coconut rhinoceros beetle, has a huge impact on our ability to grow coconuts, which are super culturally important. They're a great food source. And so what is Hawaii? Can you even practice culture without coconuts? So I'm coming at it from that angle, but it also clearly has impacts on the food system as well.
My kindergartners, they tell me that the cheese tastes like plastic and they don't finish their food, and the milk is spoiled. So I am learning about how I can be a bridge to help them advocate for a better school in the cafeteria. So first I have to understand how our food system works here in Hawaii. So coming here to visit all of these sites in person has been really impactful and meaningful for me. And now I can take what I've learned to create a presentation for a kindergartner and show them how our food system works, to break it down for them so that they understand where their food comes from and what they can do to advocate for better food systems here in Hawaii.
We haven't had enough kind of engagement on the part of cafeteria managers, cafeteria workers, primarily because they're working during the time period that we're in session. I think too, there's honestly this pervasive narrative that disempowers those folks, makes them feel like it's not their place to talk about what's important or their vision for their work. I think that it's really important to challenge that, and we haven't really figured out good ways to do that.
So the legislative process is a very important one in terms of creating systemic change in Hawaii and beyond. Schools and teachers and students can get involved in advocating for different legislative bills and resolutions. They could even come up with a bill idea and find a way to introduce that bill and then advocate for it.
So we talked about and went to go introduce ourselves. We talked about the schools we are from and the importance this bill really does have.
Super cool to be here to advocate for our bills. Incentivizing youth to be interested in this. Hearing voices from youth is really important.
Increased participation in the state legislative process is critical. If we are to have effective structural change in the food system, we need to have active participation on the part of a large cross-section of citizens who express a well-informed scientific opinion about why this is critical. You can learn to be an active participant in that state legislative process.
Legislators and other policymakers and administrators do listen to the voice of youth. So I really encourage even more to become a part of this movement.
At every speech I give to youth groups, I say the same thing, and my punchline is that farming is a noble profession. It is no less noble than being a doctor or a lawyer.
Through education, I'm very hopeful that the students will have a voice in that and be able to make an impact.
And they're becoming more organized, so they're working less as individuals and more as like part of a group that speaks as a collective. I think that's really important and powerful to have students connect to each other and find their power together. It is their place to be in these conversations. It is their world.